Hey team, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to be using the database WideWorldImporter, and I'm going to show you 3 SQL statements that will build some killer reports. How much did we make today? Compute sales rep commission, and show each customer order totals. These are key reports if you have a commercial website. Hope you enjoy this video. I'd like to give a shout out to Microsoft SQL Server sample code. This is copyrighted for Microsoft Corporation. Notice on line 9, permission is hereby granted free of charge to any person obtaining a copy. Pretty much keeps going, and then included without limitation or rights to use, copy, modify, merge, publish, distribute, sublicense, and or sell. So pretty much give a shout out to Microsoft. Thank you very much for letting us use this database. Okay, let's download this. Go to your favorite search engine, WideWorldImporters, and then database, and then hit search. When it comes back, it's going to give you a bunch of links. The one I used was this download install SQL Server sample databases. Click that. Now let us download both the OLTP and the OLAP. Now these are different kind of databases. For instance, the OLTP, what does that mean? Well, those are transaction-based processing type databases. For instance, if you're a credit card activity or a banking activity, or maybe like even a retail checkout, they probably have an OLTP. Now, OLAP, the A actually stands for analytics. So this kind of database has a bunch of code for analytics, and look what it says here, online analytics processing. So they are different. So let's download both of these, put them on your local computer, and then we'll go to the next step. As you can see here on my local computer, C drive users Scott J. Scott Win 10-2 downloads. You probably have a download on your computer. They went into that folder. Look at, I have the WideWorld import -full.bak, and then I have the DW full BAK. Those are 2 files that we're going to need. Let's do the next step. The folder where Microsoft SQL Server installed may be different than mine, but what you want to do is get up to the backup directory. We then want to copy over these 2 files to this subdirectory. That will allow us to easily restore them to our database. Let's do that. Notice I just drag and drop them from my download folder to the backup folder, and now I'm ready to use SQL Server and restore both of these databases. Let's do that. As you can see, I already have several databases installed on my local version, but what we want to say is right click here and then say restore databases. Once we're in restore databases, all we have to do is go to devices, then navigate to our folder, hit file, add, and notice that it will come to that folder where we copied them files. Notice I will select on the DW full BAK and hit OK, then say OK, and then I just have to hit OK one more time, and just several minutes later that will be done. WideWorldImporters DW has been successfully restored. Let's do the next one. You can see here in our databases, WideWorldImporters DW has been installed in our local database. Right click on databases. Let's click on restore database. Click on device, and then let's say file, add, and then notice we're just going to say full. And then once we get that, we're going to say OK, and then we're going to press OK, and guess what that's going to do? That's going to install it locally into our database. As you can see, the database is now successfully installed. All we have to do now is start doing our SQL statements to learn how to do several steps. Open up a new query window, type in the command use WideWorldImporters, and execute that so we can use that database. In the first query, notice we're going to get the invoice date, the number of orders, and then the calculating fields, and then give me a net amount. Let's solve this with some programming. So you just saw the results from the first SQL statement. Now we're going to type in the SQL to solve that problem. Now there are two tables that we will use in this solution. The first table, sales.invoices, and the second table is sales.invoice lines. These two tables solve that first problem. Now before we go solving problems, let's make sure we understand the data. I call this step data discovery, and this is when you can just use your eyes, look at the data, and kind of like know what the data looks like. Know kind of like the plan, you know, that, oh yeah, we're going to have to group all this up to make just one line. Remember, this report only had one line, one output, but you can see that there's a lot of data. I'll be using invoice date, just one date, and we'll roll that up. So I have to know how to do group by. Now, one-to-many relationship, I need to know that one line here maps to one line in the invoice line table. But notice on line 4, there are 3 items that are associated with that invoice. So that's a true one-to-many relationship. I think you understand the data now. Let's solve this problem. We will begin by just using the sales.invoices. Notice I'm looking just for one single date, and then because I'm doing an aggregate function, I can say group by a list of columns that are not part of the aggregate function. We just have one in this execute, and well, I gotta highlight the whole thing, and notice that gives me the invoice date and the number. Now we're going to use that second table and we're going to finish the SQL statement. Step 1, I have to join that table. So I say join sales.invoice lines. My alias is going to be IL. And then I say on IL invoice ID equals, from the invoice table, I say inv.invoice ID. So now these two tables are joined. Notice that we're taking the sum of extended price, tax amount, and line profit, and I'm just going to be calling them gross, tax amount, and cost. Notice they're shown here. To compute the sales rep commission, we take the extended price, we minus the tax amount, and then we give the sales rep 13.5%. Then that right there will be our next value. Let's see if that works. Notice the sales rep will make $32,792. That's a lot of money, right? To compute the net amount, we just have to do a little bit of math. We just break it into 3 little problems. We take the extended price minus the tax amount, and then we take out the commission, and then we take out the line profit, and then when we subtract all 3 of those, we end up getting net. And here is the result for query 1. That wasn't too hard. Remember, all big problems can be broken down into smaller problems. Let us look at the second query. Notice that we're just going to be using the sales rep. I want to know how much commission each sales rep is making. As the owner of the company, I think that's very, very important. Let's do this. As you can see, this query is made up of 3 tables. We've already learned the first 2 tables, invoices and invoice lines. Now we're going to take that sales rep person. Notice here it's called salesperson person ID, and that's related to the application.people. Notice person ID. That's how that relationship is formed. And then we'll just print out the full name. It's quite easy. Let's do this. It all starts with just the invoices table, and notice we're going to get it for one date, 3/27, the year 2015. Notice I'm going to get the invoice date, the salesperson ID, and then a count of the distinct invoices. That gives me the total number of orders that's been associated with this invoice salesperson. Notice that we're doing a group by because we have an aggregate function. Remember, every column that's not part of an aggregate function, you just have to put down here on this line that says group by. Here you can see that we're going to join with application.people. I'm going to alias that as P, and then I'm going to say on p.personid equals INV. INV is an alias for sales.invoices. and I'm going to be using the salesperson person ID. Notice here I added p.fullname to a list of columns I wanted. Now, because I added it here and I have an aggregate function, I have to add p.fullname down here. Say you forget to do that and then you try to execute that, you're going to get a hated error message that's going to say, hey, you have an aggregate function here and your group by is broken. So you know to put that down there now. So when you execute that, all is good. Let's finish this up. We added our third table, our final table for this solution. Let's now show you the join. Notice we say join sales.invoice lines. I'm going to use the alias IL, and then I'm going to say on il.invoice ID equals INV. Notice that maps up to line 9, sales.invoices, and its column .invoice ID. So now the join is complete. Let's now also add several other columns to this SQL statement. Notice I'm using aliases for each column, and these are the column names I want to show the person looking at this report. Now it's time to compute the sales rep commission. That is the extended price minus tax, then times it by 13.5%. Notice down here, sales rep commission, we've computed it for all 10 sales reps. We have now added our net. Notice it's just those three equations. We're going to take extended price minus tax. Okay, that's one set. Then extended price minus tax times 0.135, that's 13.5%. That is what we're paying the sales rep commission. Then minus the line profit, subtract all of them, and that gives us the net. Then I added an order by, and I want to sort from who makes the most to who makes the least. Let's see that. Notice our output is at the bottom, and we are done with the second query. And here is our final query. Notice in the corner here, we have 100 rows. I'm going to be displaying for each customer the number of items that are in their shopping cart, and then kind of like what kind of money are we talking about each customer spending. That's a great management report. Let's do it. This query is going to be using three tables: sales.invoices, .invoice lines, and sales.customers. Well, we already know about invoices and invoice lines. The only new table is sales.customer. Notice that I'll be taking the customer ID from sales.invoices and then linking it up with the customer table, and notice customer ID. So there is the join. Let's solve this problem. We begin the query and we're just going up against sales.invoices. We're doing it for the date that we've been using. And notice here I'm saying count INV invoices. In our previous ones we said count distinct. Now I want to see them. Notice at the bottom, 100 in the corner, I get to see all 100 orders. Now we just got to figure out what that customer name is and then show all the billing information. We just joined sales.customer alias as C, so we're going to be saying inv.customer ID equals c.customer ID. And you can see that now we have the customer name in our results. Now I added another column to my output. Now notice I have an aggregate function on line 5. Well, when we do a group by, all of the columns that are not part of an aggregate need to be displayed. So we added c.customer name, and there we have it. Let's see all 100 rows. The last part of this SQL statement, we just need to join with invoice lines. Invoice line is the second part of invoice. So here is your one, here is your many. If you look just back a minute ago, when we did the count on invoice ID, all of the values were 1, but now that we have the many, this is showing us the number of items that are in the shopping cart, which is pretty nice. So here we can also see that we did a order by clause, order by the net column, and we did it descending, so that means high to low. And there you have the final query. And there you have it, team, another video. And this one was a very powerful video because it's teaching you real SQL statements in real enterprise system. Thank you, Microsoft, for allowing us to use this database. Now, we downloaded 2 databases and we only used one of them. In our next video, we're going to do a little bit more SQL statements, more management reports, and these are skills that you'll be able to use in your production environment, and I hope that you can appreciate that. Okay, team, appreciate you watching this video and look forward to seeing you in my next video. Have a great weekend.